So in this class, we are going to discuss about writing the test cases. Let's take an example. Here you can see there is a test case, right? So it says that open the URL citibank.com, enter a valid username Sudhir, enter a valid password Sudhir at 123, and click on submit button. And the expected output is it should be logged in and the welcome page to be appear. Okay, so let's see next test case. So this one, open the URL citibank.com, enter the invalid username and enter the invalid password and click on submit button. So at this moment I am entering the invalid details, so I should not be able to log into the web page, and the expected output should be, it should show a message saying invalid username and invalid password. Okay, so this is how we are going to write the test cases going forward. Okay, so right now I just shown an example which already covered one. So every test case will be having a test case ID, because at the end we should know how many test cases we wrote it, right? So for that reason, for every test case there will be a test case ID and there is a test description. We can also call it as test case actions. We can also call it as simply actions. So test case description, and for every test case description there will be a expected output, what you want to do, and after you are doing that, and what is the expected output. So these two things will be there, and apart of that we require to remember the status. Okay, so what is the status after executing this test case? Let's take this one only. So once I execute this test steps, and I should see the expected output like this. I should see a error message because I entered the invalid details, and I should see a error message saying the username and password is invalid. I should see this message. If this particular message is displayed over the web application, I can say that it is pass. Okay, if this message is not shown and it is allowed me to log in, even though when I entered invalid details it is allowed me to log in, or instead of this message it has shown something, other message, some other message. Okay, so in that case also we can say it's fail. The status will be two things, one is either fail or pass, and the other column is the tester who is testing this particular test case. We need to write a tester name who is testing this particular test case, and there is one more column, that is defect ID. You can see here test case ID, test steps, expected output, actual output. Actual output is required, I will let you know when it is required, and the test status, and the tester is nothing but it's just a name, okay, who is testing that particular test case, and the defect ID. So in case if a test case is failed, so when you say a test case is failed, okay, when the expected output and the actual output is nothing but the output which you can see on a web page, okay, are not matching. So you're expecting something and the web application is behaved indifferently. Okay, so what is your expectation? For example, you are trying to log in with invalid details, and you are expecting a error message should be displayed. Instead of error message, the actual output is that it is allowed you to log in. Okay, so in that case we can say the test case is failed. The reason is we are expecting something and the actual output is different. In that case we can say a test case is failed. When a test case is failed, you have to report the issue. Okay, you have to report the issue, otherwise how a developer can fix it, how somebody will fix it? Okay, there is an issue. If you don't raise it, or how others know it and how others will fix it? Okay, it is important that whenever you see a failure, you have to raise a defect. So keeping the defect with you it's not it's not useful. You have to raise the defect, and the defect will be assigned to one of the developer who developed that particular application or particular feature, and from there onwards he will try to fix it. Okay, so it's important that we have to raise the defect ID. And if a test case has failed, we also require to write the actual output. Okay, the application is logged in. We are expecting something. Okay, we are expecting something and it is behaving no differently. In that case, we can say a test case is failed. Okay, for example, let's take this example. So I logged in with invalid username and invalid password, and I should see a error message. In this case, instead of error message, the application allow to login. Okay, and the test case is failed. And who is tested? So there. And whenever a test case is failed, you have to uh, open the bug reporting tool. We're going to see what is bug reporting tool. So we have to open the bug reporting tool, and using which you have to raise a defect. Okay, so let's say defect ID is, once you raise a defect, it's going to give a defect ID, some number. Okay, so that's what we have to do. Now the question is, how do we identify the test cases? Okay, okay, now the question is, how do we identify the test case? Okay, we should not identify the test case something, whatever it comes to our mind, we have to write it. It's not like that. Okay, so to write the test cases, we have to go in a systematic approach. We have to go in a systematic approach. Okay, using which we have to define the test case. Then only we can say we have written all the test cases completely. Okay, if you miss a single test case to write, if you miss a single test case to write, there is a chance that in that, there is a chance that you might missing a defect. Okay, there is a chance that you might leaving a defect. Okay, let's say this particular test case you have not written. Okay, but with different reasons. Okay, whether you followed a systematic approach or not, whatever it is. Okay, but somehow you are not identified this test case. Okay, that is logging with invalid details, you have not identified it and you have not written it. So in that case, what happens? Okay, so let's say you have not tested it and the application gone to the production. Okay, somebody is trying to log in. So there are people who try to log in the application with invalid details intentionally. There are people, they might forget the username or password and they try to log in it. Okay, so in that case, if the application allowed them, even though with the invalid details, so you will be in a big loss. The company will be in a big loss. Okay, they might change the data, they might send a mails to whatever it is. The company will be in a big loss that time. So it's important that we have to identify all the test cases. At the same time, it is also important to make sure we execute everything. Okay. So right now we are not in execution mode. We are in writing or designing the test cases. Okay. So there are two kinds of testings. There are two kinds of testing broadly classified. Okay, I will explain. So it depends on, let's say, how many test cases you are going to write it. How many test cases you are going to write. Okay, so it depends on the feature size, the application size or feature size which you are going to test it. Okay, so for any feature, hardly 30 to 50 test cases will be there, not more than that. 30 to 50 is also, it's a big range, but on an average you'll be writing for every features around 30 test cases.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, so as I said, the testing is broadly classified into two things. One is functional and other one is non-functional. Functional is nothing but giving the input and validating the output. Non-functional is nothing but application, such kind of things. How your applications will handle in different situations, when more number of users are there, when less number of users are there, and when more number of data is there, something like that. It comes to non-functional testing. Okay. So when it comes to function, let's say you give a input. If you're giving a input and you are validating the output, is nothing but it's a functional testing. Okay. Whereas in the non-functional testing, we'll be mostly looking into how responsive the application is. Okay. So let's say, to take a best example, let's say you have a banking application and try to log in on the 31st of a month ending. Okay. So most of the people will be logging into the application and see whether the salary is credited or not. If it is credited, let's move some of the money to different EMI, something like that. Okay. So at the end of the month, most of the people will be using the application. Okay. How responsive it is. And other thing is that, let's take a messaging server. Okay. So during the December 31st night, 12 o'clock, okay, and you try to send a message and see how the responsiveness of the message, how it goes. Okay. It might not deliver. No, there is a chance that it might deliver at the same moment, and there is a chance that it might deliver with a delay, right? So during that time, lots of messages people will be exchanging, and it is expected that your message could deliver a delay with a delay. Okay. So it's nothing but how your application behaves, how your applications is responsiveness. Okay. Let's say you're trying to log in a application, it is taking more than a minute to log in. So does anybody loves that application? Does anybody shows interest to use that application? So if you are trying to log in and more than a minute, okay, and still it is not loading the pages, even though you are having a very good internet speed at your home, will somebody likes that application? Take an example of Facebook only. If you are trying to log in and it is you kept waiting for minute, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes, still it is loading. Will somebody have patience to wait for application to load? Otherwise, what they do? You can also message me. Yes, yes, please go ahead if you have any answers. Okay. So we don't have patience, right? If it is taking more than 3 minutes or 4 minutes, who will have patience to, yeah, to see for that application? Okay. So they'll just ignore it. They'll just close that application, look for another application. Okay. So in that manner, we should make sure that your application is not taking too much time to load the page. Responsiveness is this one. Okay. Your application should not take more time to load the pages. Okay. It should respond faster. That's one thing. And how strength is your application. Okay, with more number of users, you make sure that your application is not broken. Okay, we don't know, right, when more number of people will come to our site. Okay, so during the festival season, they will try to buy so many things. No, there are so many users will be logged in and they will try to buy so many things. Okay, and with more number of users also, your application should be capable to handle them. Okay, so such kind of things will be validating in non-functional testing. Let's talk about okay, let's talk about how to design the test cases. Okay, so we have to design the test cases in a systematic approach, okay. So to follow the systematic approach, first we need to identify the test types. Okay, we need to identify the test types. Let's take an example of an application. Okay, we'll take this application and we'll try to identify the test cases for this application. Let's say there is an email and there is a password. Okay, and this particular user field not only allows email, it also allows a phone number. Okay, this is, and once we enter email or phone and enter password, and when you click on login, you should be able to log in. Okay, so if the things are valid, if the details which you gave are valid, you should be able to log in. So this, for this functionality, we are going to design the test cases. Remember, for this functionality we are going to design the test cases. Okay, so now what we need to identify is, okay, so to test this application, is this test types are applicable or not. So functional testing is applicable or not. Okay, so what I say, functional testing, if you give some input and validate the output, it's a functional test cases. Okay, you give some email and give password and click on login, and if you see some result or some output, that's a functional test case. That's nothing but functional test case. So it is applicable. Okay, you can blindly go with functional testing for anything. A functional testing is applicable. When it comes to integration testing, okay, so here if you can see, there is a login page. Once you log in, you can see a, what do you see once you log in into the Facebook, you can able to see a post page, right? People's post page. Okay, so you can consider login is a module, one module, and post. Okay, so the sharings or postings are, we can say, another module. So do we have any interaction with the login and for the posting pages? Do we have any interaction? Okay, if there is any interaction, you have to find out what is the interaction, and let's make sure that interaction is working fine. Okay, that's nothing but integration testing. Integration testing is nothing but combining more, two or more than that, combining two or more modules, not one module. Okay, so combining two or more modules, and let's find out the interaction between those modules and make sure that interaction is working fine, is nothing but integration testing. Okay, so I can say there is a little bit communication between a login page and a posting page, because once you log in, you should able to see the post page. Okay, so make sure that once you log in, you are able to see the post page. That's the only interaction. In fact, okay, so we together combining the post page and login page, and we make sure that, so there is an interaction. So once I log in, I should see the post page. Okay, and we say yes. And database testing. Okay, so database testing is nothing but, let's say, where this username and password will be stored. The question is where this username and password will be stored. Any answers? Any answers? Any idea, rough idea?
The username and password should store in a secure hard drive.
Okay, okay, that's great. Okay, it should be stored somewhere and that should be secured. That's what Sunny is telling. That's true. Okay, so the data has to be stored in some place. Okay, and that place we call it as a database. Okay, so most of the web application they store their user data into a database. Okay, and when you enter the username and password and when you click on login, this whatever the data you entered on these fields will be validated across the database, will verify, okay, with this username and with this password is there any record available in my database. If it is available, it just allows you to log into the application. If it is not available, it say the username is not registered with us, something like that you might be seeing, sometimes, right? So so here there is an interaction with the database, so we test it. Installation testing. So installation testing here, here we are not going to install anything. Some things I will talk at the end because it's very advanced to talk right now. So log testing is nothing but, let's say you are testing your application and yes,
This is
pardon?
yeah,
Yeah, please, Raj.
yeah. It's a database testing is a functional testing, right? It's not a non-functional, right?
Actually there is it's not comes into non-function, I mean it not comes into functional testing, I hope. Okay, because there is no specification related to database testing. Okay, so it basically comes into non-functional testing because we are not giving any separate input to test the database testing, right? We do in a normal way, and we ensure the data is stored properly or not into the database or not. We can consider it is functional or non-functional. Okay, so because here we are giving some input and we also validating the output, that's one thing. And here also we also making sure that even though the database is loaded with fully, it's working fine, some kind of functional and non-functional attributes both will be checking into database testing. And that's the reason I know kept it as a non-functional testing. And when it comes to when you refer any book, actually there is no concept of database testing. Okay, so people doesn't mention any database testing. There is no test type called database testing. But so with my experience I also added a database testing. You can consider it as functional non-functional, but make sure you tested it. That's it. So when I work for a company, they suggested me to go for non-functional testing. This is this database testing is okay. So that's the reason I'm coming with that. But you can define as functional, non-functional. That doesn't matter, because the reason we do database testing is non-functional is, so we do this one at the end of our at the end of our all test cases are executed. Okay, so when we do the non-functional testing is once the functional test cases are done, when then will be moved to the non-functional testing. Okay, so that's the reason we kept it as non-functional testing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So when it comes to log testing, okay, for every application it will be logging some data. Let's say you are testing your application, all of a sudden it got crashed, all of a sudden it got crashed. Okay, so how do you identify why it is exactly crashed, what is the problem? Okay, so it will be every action you do, it will be invoke some code in the backend. It will invoke some code in the backend. Okay, as long as the code is going fine, you can see a working application. If the code is not gone it's not gone properly, and you can see there is some errors, there is some crashes, such kind of things you will be seeing it. Okay, and where exactly the problem has occurred, at which part of code, and what is the actual reason the crash is happened, and what is the actual reason the application is behaving something differently. Okay, so to know all this information, so developers will be printing their information into a log files. Okay, what are the actions you are doing, what are the actions are happening in the internal to the system, they will be printing everything into a text file that we can normally call it as a log file. In that log file you can see currently what is happening in the system. Okay, and where exactly the problems are coming, all those information will be available in the log files. Okay, so the importance of log file is that the need of log file is that it will be having all the information currently what is happening in the system. It will be having all the information currently what is happening in the system. Whenever some issue has happened, it the system will log some information or print some information into the log file. Okay, whenever a crash is open, whenever a crash is happened, you can go to that log file and verify what is the reason for this crash. Okay, if something it is abnormal, raise a defect. Okay, so log testing is basically applicable for everything. Okay, so blindly go for there are some test types which you can blindly go yes. Okay, which you have to test it. When it comes to restart testing, it is not industry um, related testing. Okay, but based on our experience we also find out this kind of testing and add it. So when it comes to restart testing, so there are chances that sometimes when you restart your application, okay, when you restart your application, and you might not see you might not able to see some of the images, or the application might not work properly as it has to intended to work. Okay, so such kind of things we do in the restart testing. So restart testing is nothing but restart your application, execute your test cases. That's it. Restart your application and try to execute one simple test case, that is logging to the application. Okay, that's about restart testing. So in the restart testing, you will be restarting the application and testing one or two test cases and make sure it is working fine. Okay, so this is also applicable. And when it comes to system testing is nothing but testing the whole application. Okay, when we talk about integration testing, what we said that combining two or more modules and find out the interaction between those modules and make sure those interactions are working. That's what we talked about interaction testing. When it comes to system testing, in the system testing we'll be testing the whole application, entire application, not one or two modules, not three modules, four modules. We'll be testing the entire whole application and making sure that the user scenarios are working fine. Okay, let's talk about a end-to-end testing for a Facebook. Okay, I logged into the application, I viewed my messages, and I also confirmed some of the friends request, and I added some friends, and I read a post, and I share a post, and I logged out. Okay, so whoever log into the Facebook, they typically doing these actions, right? They log into the Facebook and they first see, does they have any messages, does they have any notification, and if they have, they will look into that, and if there are any friends requests, they'll confirm it or they'll reject it, and they'll read some of the posts which are written by some people, and they try to share the post or like the post or comment the post, or they'll post their own post, right? And finally they logged out. Typically you take any Facebook users, they usually doing this kind of scenario, right? During the system testing, okay, we'll do the end-to-end testing on a whole application, on a complete application. We do the end-to-end testing, we log in and log out, in between some actions we do. So that's about system testing. Okay, you no need to remember any definitions for any of these test steps, just remember the concept and just proceed with that. Okay, so when we do the system testing, we test the system with the entire whole application, and we execute the user scenarios. Okay, so right now I'm only, right now there is only login page is available, and not entire system is available right now. It is in, let's assume a Facebook page is in development. Okay, right now you can only see a login page, and you don't have the, you don't have the complete development is done to execute the system testing. Okay, so apart of login module, you don't have any other module. Apart of login page, you don't have any other pages to test. Okay, so in that case, you don't have the whole application and you can do that. Okay, you say no. Okay, and system testing is not into functional or non-functional. Okay, it's one kind of verification. And when it comes to compatibility testing, okay, let's say if the Facebook is not opening in the Mozilla Firefox and it is not opening the Safari, okay, how many people will use it? Every time they have to use the Chrome, it's not guaranteed that everybody uses a Chrome. Okay, every time they have to use on the Internet Explorer. Let's assume Facebook only support Internet Explorer. Okay, so does Mac people will be able to use it? They have pretty difficult to use the Internet Explorer in the Mac machines. And if you see, in US, UK, and European countries, most of the people uses Mac, and there is a chance that Facebook can lose the users from these countries, right? So whatever the application is developed, okay, as a tester, we have to make sure that it is working in all different browsers. In all browsers, you are able to access from, all the browsers, and you are able to access, you are able to use that application in all the different browsers. Okay, so that's about compatibility testing, making sure the application is working on the different environment as customer specified. Okay, it's not like we have to assume that something and test it. Okay, customer says that, okay, my application should work in Windows, Mac, Linux, and my application should work in Mozilla Firefox and Safari browsers mandatorily, and other browsers, yes, it is optional. Okay, in that case, you have to test your application in Mac, Linux, Safari, and you have to make sure that your application is working in Safari and Safari browser, and what is the other browser customer told? Okay, Safari browser and Mozilla Firefox. Okay, and other browsers you test or don't test, it doesn't matter because the customer said it is optional. Okay, so that's about compatibility testing, making sure that the applications are working on the specified environment by the customer. So this will be definitely applicable. Okay, and when it comes to acceptance testing, so acceptance testing is nothing but, let's say you have developed the, the developers has developed the application. Okay, the application is ready now. So before customer accept your product, okay, so they do a basic testing. They will be having some expectations, and they'll be testing that. Okay, and making sure that the product is working fine. Let's take an example, real-time example. So you went to buy a car. Okay, so you will not buy it immediately, right? You do a test drive and making sure it is, so it is working fine as you expected, and it is, it's look wise and feel wise, comfortable wise, everything is matching to your expectations, then only you buy it. In the same way, otherwise you leave out from that showroom and you will go to some other manufacturer and some other showroom, right? In the same way, the customer also told you that the application has to be developed in this manner. Okay, and you have to develop in that manner only. Okay, if there is any variation, and before the customer accepts your product which is developed by your team, before the customer accepts, they will verify it, they will test it. Okay, they'll make sure the application is developed based on their expectation. So if everything matches, they'll accept the product, and then with that deal will be closed. Otherwise you have to rework on it. Okay, acceptance testing is nothing but there are two kinds of acceptance testing. Okay, one customer will be doing it, and one testers also will be doing it. Okay, once a developer done something, once a developer uh, completed one feature, and before you accept that feature for testing, before you accept that particular feature for testing, whatever the whatever the developer develops, you have to test. As a tester you have to test it. Okay, so then only you can certify that it is working fine. So before you start testing that application or that feature what a developer is developed, you have to make sure that the basic testing is working, the basic functionality of that feature is working fine. Okay, you'll be writing to make sure that the basic functionality of the feature is working fine. You'll be writing one or two test cases and you'll be executing that. And once those two test cases are working fine, you will say, okay, your feature is working fine, let me test it further, okay, with my all other test cases. So acceptance testing is nothing but, so before you accept something, test it and make sure it is working fine with the basic functionalities, and then go with the further testing. So acceptance testing is applicable for every feature. Okay, here in fact will be in the acceptance testing we'll be writing the test cases from the customer expectations. What is the customer expectation from this feature, what a customer is expecting in this feature. Okay, so exactly take those take those expectations and write one or two test cases and make sure it is working fine. Conformance testing or compliance testing is not applicable. The reason is, so conformance or compliance testing is nothing but, is your application or is your future is following any standards, is following any standards. Okay, let's take a Bluetooth. Okay, let's take an example of Bluetooth. So any device having Bluetooth is able to communicate with other device having the Bluetooth, right? So the reason is that every Bluetooth hardware or software has following the same standards defined by some community. Okay, so that is the reason. Okay, any device which is having a Bluetooth is able to communicate with other Bluetooth device. Okay, that's one thing. Let's take another example. Take a Wi-Fi router. Okay, so you have a Wi-Fi router of one brand or different brand, whatever it is. Okay, so your system is capable to take the signal from that Wi-Fi router, right? Okay, so today I'm having TP-Link and tomorrow I'm going to buy a Cisco. Okay, whatever it is, your system is able to take the signals from that Wi-Fi router, right? The reason is that even though you use a different Wi-Fi router, your system is working. Not only your system, any mobile device or any iPad or anything is able to take the signals from that Wi-Fi router. Okay, the reason is that every Wi-Fi router has certain standards and follow the same standards. That's the reason. So any Wi-Fi router is compatible with, and any is compatible with or compliance with, you know, a different systems or different products. So compliance testing is nothing but, if any application or feature which is developed follows a standards, okay, we have to make sure that is the future is really followed those standards. Okay, so let me tell once again. If any future is followed any standards, okay, as a tester we have to make sure that this particular feature has really followed those standards. We have to test the application against the standards. That's it. We have to test the application against the standards. For login feature, there won't be any particular standards. Okay, so however people want, they will design it. So that's the reason I said it as no. Now your job is to repeat this video and take a functional testing, write your own notes, and take a integration testing, write the notes, and take a database testing, write the notes. Okay, and there are some hints also here. Okay, so what do we test in the database testing? Okay, so there are some hints also, because it is very important. Anyway, I'll be sharing the material to you. Okay, so before that, before I share the material, I want you to write on your own notes. Okay, and validate your notes across the, with the material which I sent, and make sure it is correct. And in our next class, we are going to work on the remaining test types. Okay, so that's about today's class. We'll finish functional test cases first, and then we'll look into non-functional test cases in the next class. There is few functional test cases that we'll look into that, and we'll work on them. Okay, once these test types are completed and we are ready for writing the test cases, once you write the test cases and we are ready for executing them, and if any defects, we'll be raising it. Okay, that's how most of our most of our job is to write the test cases and execute them. If you are comfortable in writing the test cases, and you'll be pretty much comfortable when you join a company also. And we'll be doing at this, for writing the test cases, we'll be doing different assignments, we'll be taking different examples, and I make sure that you are comfortable in writing the test cases. I know it is important. Okay, so that's how it goes. And in our next class, we are going to complete the remaining test types, and we'll start writing the functional test cases.